Hey guys, hope you are doing well. I wanted to talk to you about what I look for as a pageant judge. So, pageant judging 101. There might be two types of people, I think, watching this. One will be a pageant contestant, which is probably the majority of you. And so you're interested in what a judge is looking for because your belief is that that will help you perform better or score better, which is a totally logical and common sense approach. The other people who might be watching is actually people who are about to judge a pageant or might judge a pageant in the future. Um, I have seen some discussion from the pageant sort of public that they would like to see more judges who, I'm not going to say take their job more seriously, but I mean, that's not a bad way of phrasing it. But certainly they would like to see that the judges make more of an effort to educate themselves and prepare themselves for the job. That's not to say that none of them do, but certainly I have seen cases where the judges are not there because they have pageant expertise or because they are so prepared. They are there because they are Z-list celebrities that no one in their right mind would give a damn about. They have no idea what a pageant is about and they just vote for the prettiest girl, which is a huge shame because if you are someone who puts a lot of effort into your pageant, a lot of sweat, blood and tears, blood, sweat and tears, which I know from first-hand experience a lot of you do, then a judge who doesn't know what they're doing can derail your dreams or judge you unfairly because they simply don't know what they're doing. Let me give you my examples. So I wouldn't say I've judged many pageants, but I have had the privilege of, I think twice now, judging the Miss Earth pageant, the international one, which, if you don't know, is one of the Grand Slam pageants and one of the four biggest pageants in the world. When I say if you don't know, it's because I know a lot of you might just be focused on Miss Universe or Miss USA, and I don't throw any shade on you for that, because when you look at basically Miss Universe and Miss USA are bigger than all the other pageants combined in terms of public interest anyway, especially in the Western world. But Miss Earth is one of the four Grand Slam pageants. I think at its last iteration, it's not uncommon for it to have 70, 80, 90 countries competing. And obviously it's an environmentally, you can guess from the title, environmentally themed pageant. Now, I had the privilege of twice judging for it. One of the, not the live in-person section, but some of the submissions, because during COVID, obviously there was no, I don't think there was a live component at all. I think there might, but I won't go into the details. But these were actual video submissions versus interviewing the people live. Now, I would say I didn't get as much preparatory information from the organization as I would have liked. I was asked if I wanted to be a judge. I said yes. I mean, why would I not? It's something I haven't done before, and I think it's a great honor to be asked. So I said yes. But at that point, I would sort of expect to receive a little bit more information about not only what am I judging, but what I should be looking for, the criteria, right? I know as much as pageant judging is subjective, there should at least be some scoring criteria, as in what are you looking for as a pageant, because otherwise it's just my personal preference, which has some bearing on how I judge, but I don't think it should be the most important thing when I'm judging. So I didn't get any of that, and we were given, I think it was a score out of 100 for one of them. It might have been a score out of 20 for one of them and a score out of, it doesn't really matter because you can always, even if the score's out of 100, it doesn't mean it's worth 100% of your points, right? You can take that 100 and reduce it to 5% of your eventual score, whatever. But bear in mind, I'm looking at videos, and I am someone, if you don't know me, I know a lot of you do, but if you don't know me, I'm someone who likes to over-prepare, maybe overthink. I like to think things through. I don't like to be caught with my pants down, so to speak. And so when I was asked to judge, I took it very seriously. I thought, okay, how am I going to do this to the best of my ability? And when I say best, I mean, I thought about it and went, well, the judge's role is to help the system pick the best title holder for that particular system. So, the title holder for Miss Earth might be different to the title holder for Miss Universe, Miss World, Miss America, what have you. But if I'm doing my job as a judge correctly, it's my role to help the system pick the best title holder for their particular set of beliefs and values. So I thought, okay, so even though I might be looking at a video and the video was, let's say, on ecotourism in that candidate's country, Austria, Australia, whatever it is, Thailand, I got very clear as to, because when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, I'm watching video. What are some of the things? 'Cause I produced a lot of video. And one of the things that first strikes you when you see a video is what the production values are, right? I mean, obviously this video here, for example, is prime example of low production value. I mean, it's reasonable lighting. I'm outside, it's not too noisy, but it's just me speaking to an iPhone. Then you'll see some of the candidates' videos obviously have been shot by what looks like a professional production team, with B-roll, glorious panning shots, and really well overlaid audio that has no background sound. Transitions beautiful. It looks like a miniature Hollywood production. But I was thinking, okay, I can't judge the candidate on that, because that is not a reflection, more than likely it's not a reflection of the candidate. It's a reflection of the production team they have behind them. So I mean, it's no great surprise, for example, when you look at pageant powerhouses, particularly for the Miss Earth system, which is based in Southeast Asia, when you see the production values of the video from Philippines or from Thailand or from Vietnam, it's not going to surprise you to see that, oh wow, those videos look really pretty. And I remember during COVID, and I say this because I interviewed the New Zealand title holder and I got to know her reasonably well. And COVID lockdowns in New Zealand were very, very strict and happened to fall right before, her name was Ava, before Ava was going to go out and do all her shooting, and she couldn't leave her home all of a sudden to do any shooting. So all she could do was basically go to a local park with one friend who basically had an iPhone and try and make a production that would rival those Hollywood level productions with just a cell phone and the local park. And so I watched her video, and she spoke really well and she presented herself really well. But I think the thing that would have jumped out to a lot of the judges was, oh, the video doesn't look that nice. It's not professionally shot. The audio isn't that great. It looks kind of amateurish. And to me, that wasn't the point. And so I say this because it's very important that as a judge, you get clear that, well, at least for me, right, as the overthinker, someone who likes to prepare, it was very important that I judge on the things that matter. And as I said, I think my role as a judge, or the role of a judge, is to help the system pick the best title holder for their system. And I didn't think giving someone a higher score because their video production team did a great job was me doing my job as a judge. I thought that was being misled. Now, there are other things that I can talk about in terms of my preparation. For example, giving a score out of 100 for me was a bit overwhelming because, when do you give 93 or 89? There's too many possibilities. I much prefer to think of, I can do 10, give a score out of 10. And I've done a lot of scoring in the past, and I've given some thought to it, and I'm pretty comfortable with 7 being kind of the middle ground. I say 7 is okay. Anything over 7 is good. Anything under 7 leaves a little bit to be desired. But for me, 7 is okay, 8 is good, 9 is excellent, and 10 is really, really outstanding. That's kind of the level that I have in my head. The level that I have in my head when I'm giving those scores. And then I took those and translated those to scores out of 100. So 7 would be 70, for example. 8 would be 80. I mean, you could do a 7.5 if you wanted, and you could move the scores up and down a little bit if you thought one 7 was a little bit better than another 7. And when I say move them up or down a little bit, I'm not talking about fiddling with a score, but the bonus that we had with the videos was that we could watch them all, give a once over, give a rough grading, and then you can sort of adjust the scores as to, okay, these both got 7s, but I think that 7 was better, so I'm going to make that a 7.5. or maybe you think you overscored the first person or underscored the first person. I mean, this is an issue when you're looking at 20, 30 videos, right? We weren't judging all the candidates. I think we had the Oceania, that had this weird name for us, basically Australia, but Australia and Southeast Asia. So I think it was about 20 countries. And so you could go back after the fact and adjust the scores. So I say all of this, and also when you're looking at something like a Miss Earth, it's pretty obvious what their beliefs and values would be. But if it's something like a Miss Universe, I think you need to give some considered thought as a judge as to who would be the best title holder for the system. I mean, the system can say some stuff and can have certain values that they state, but I mean, you as a judge also should give some thought as to what sort of values do you promote. And I like to promote people who speak with confidence, very, very intelligent, don't cause unnecessary controversy, professional, responsible. For me, how they walk on stage is, to be frank, it's not even on the list. Now, walking on stage is part and parcel of pageantry, I get that. But for me, when I am judging on stage, and I've only done that very infrequently, but for me, again, I'm looking at that as through the lens of who would be the best title holder. Based on this walk, who would be the best title holder for the system? Now, that might sound a bit weird, and to an extent it is, but I'm trying to look for things like confidence or presence or poise. Someone who doesn't rush, for example. If someone rushes through or has very exaggerated, their arm movements are all over the place, I kind of look at that as someone who doesn't really have the confidence or the poise to take up space. And so that's the lens I look through it. That's why I don't look at what color her dress is, or frankly, who the designer was. To me, it doesn't matter at all. So if you were a judge watching this is a kind of level of preparation I expect from myself. And frankly, I would like to see more judges have this level of preparation and thought processes going on, rather than just showing up on the day and giving some random score out of 10, 20, 100. If you are a contestant watching this, what I want you to take from this is that I am obviously by no means representative of every judge. Every judge is going to be different. They're going to be looking for something else. What I will say for you, unfortunately, is that not every judge gives the same level of thought or preparation that I've just spoken about. And not every judge really knows what they're doing, to be frank. I've mentioned briefly Z-list celebrities who are basically there because they did some reality TV show that no one gives a crap about. And if you are asking me what are the judges looking for, and you're asking me that question because you think that you can tailor your performance or alter your performance or put an angle on your performance such that you get better results, my answer to that is that probably, yes, it should be on your list as to, what are the judges looking for, but it should by no means be the top thing on your list, because frankly, some judges don't know what they're looking for. And it will drive you mad if you try and cater your performance on this assumption that every judge either looks for the same thing or actually is competent. There are a lot of judges out there who don't know what they're doing. And so I think it's a waste of time. It's a huge, gross waste of your time to be putting too much thought into what the judges are looking for. Obviously, I would like you to put some thought into what a competent judge would be looking for, or what we could assume a judge would be looking for. For example, confidence, a story of resilience, someone who's hard-working, etc., etc. But not every judge is even going to judge those qualities the same, right? Some will place more of a premium on, let's say, hard work. Some people might place a high premium on education. And by the way, some people look at education like you got your master's or your doctorate. That's a great thing. Other people will not value like a formal education nearly as highly as, let's say, starting a business that does 6 figures or 7 figures a year in revenue. And so my plea to you is this: don't overthink what judges are looking for, because it's not the right path to go down, and it's not the right area to spend your focus on. So you say, okay, well then what do I focus on? Should I just ignore them? No. What I'm saying, of course, ask yourself what you think most judges will be looking for. And very basically, as I said, confidence and being well spoken, for example, being articulate, is something that, most judges, I hope most judges are not looking for someone who can't string two words together. But I think your focus should be on ask yourself, what is it that you want to stand for? So when someone looks at you, what beliefs, values, advocacies do you stand for? What are you going to be remembered for? Are you going to be remembered for the platform that you built? Is there a particular story of resilience or overcoming adversity, for example, that shaped who you are? And then what I want you to work on, what I suggest that you work on, are the skills that articulate and communicate who you are to the best of your ability. Now, whether that is in interview, an interview that's a bit clearer, right? Being able to speak and articulate, let's say, your advocacy or your story. That's something that you can very clearly work on. When it comes to being on stage, you might say, well, my advocacy, what does that have to do with how I perform on stage? You might be surprised. I'm not going to say it's the only thing, right? But maybe it affects your choice of outfit. Maybe it affects a certain mannerism that you have on stage. Obviously, you still need to work on the on-stage skills, the presence, the poise. And as I said, the way I look at those as someone who's more focused on the substance than the style, and I don't say that with any disrespect to the style, but as someone who's more focused on the advocacy and the hard work and the story behind the title holder, behind the pretty face, I look at it more as, does that person look confident? Do they look like they're confident taking up space? Do they have a presence? Or do they look like someone who's just going to be rushed off stage because they don't feel like they belong? So I want you to focus on, I'd sum it up by saying, working on what is the best version of yourself? What is the version of yourself that you want to show up as at the pageant? And then I want you to take that and then work on the skills that are going to help articulate that and communicate that. Because it's one thing to have an amazing advocacy as an example, or an amazing story of overcoming adversity. But it's a completely different thing to be able to communicate that effectively. And that's a separate skill set that needs to be practiced. And that skill set, by the way, is not just interview. When I say communication, don't just think interview. Think about how do you communicate that in your social media presence? How are you communicating that in, let's say, online interviews that you do, whether it's an Instagram live or, a pageant publication such as myself? How do you communicate that even in how you show up when you are doing your advocacies, or when you show up and you're interacting with your sister queens? You want to give some thought as to being congruent. So you say you stand for one thing. Let's make sure that that's communicated with some congruency. You're not, for example, saying that you advocate against fast fashion and then turn up wearing everything that's bought from a fast fashion store, do you? And so I would say those should be your two guiding things. And you need to give some thought as to what it is you stand for and what your beliefs and values are, which maybe a lot of people don't. That is where being a little bit older or having more life experience is a massive advantage. Because when you go through those hard times, that's when you find out about yourself. That's when you learn the most about yourself. When you're young, it's a bit harder. And by the way, I say life experience because it's not really about age. Because there's some people who are 15, 16, 17, 18 who have already endured hell on earth and have an amazing depth of character that's been shaped by that. Then there are people who are 50, 60, 70 who've never been through really any hardship except, they get the wrong burger from McDonald's or got the wrong Starbucks. And so they're not very interesting people. That depth of character is not there. But I need you to think, you need to spend some time on reflection as who are you going to show up as? What are your beliefs, values? What are you passionate about? What do you want to be remembered for? And then, okay, what skill set do you need to practice? Are you a good communicator? Are you good at social media? Focus on your strengths, mitigate against your weaknesses. But I think focusing on that, because if you go into that room, but the way I would do it is I'm going to go into that interview room as an example, or I'm going to go on stage and I want to be remembered for this. I want to accomplish this. I want to stand for this. And it has very little to do with who's watching. Does that make sense? Like if I want to sit down in that interview room, own it, speak with confidence, be articulate, get my vision across for not only being the title holder, but my vision with my advocacies, my beliefs and values. That's irrelevant as to who else is sitting in that room is not part of that vision for me. I can communicate that congruently regardless of who's sitting in that room. Now, might they ask me stupid questions? Sure. But then again, it's a skill set of practicing interview, right? Same as when you go on stage. You want to practice the certain skills, the turns, the walk, the way that you would like to project yourself. And by the way, make sure that you're videoing yourself so you really do see what you look like, sound like. Way too many people rely only on coaching, or looking at a mirror is okay, but really videoing yourself and getting that objective, you're seeing what other people see. That can be a little bit uncomfortable at times. Most of us don't like to see that, but that's the most important thing. So to wrap this up, that's what I look for. That's what I look for when I'm judging. It's quite a lot. There's a depth of thought there. There's an analysis, there's a preparation, there's a level of thought that's also shaped by my experience, like 20 years plus of coaching, specifically as a tennis coach in this case. But at the same time, you can't rely on every judge doing that. I don't even know if you can rely on the majority of judges doing that. And even if they did, they are all looking for different things. If you assume the competence, if you assume that the judges are competent and unbiased, which is a big assumption, they're still not going to be looking for the same things. And two judges can look at the same thing, and one thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread, and another one will look at it and go, no, instant disqualification, you can't be the title holder, I'm giving you the worst mark ever. So what I'm saying to you is, don't overthink this one. Don't think about it too much. Let it inform your decisions a little bit, but focus on you, what you want to portray, the best version, as I said, the best version of yourself, the one that we want to show up at pageant day. What is that person like? Who does she stand, what values does she stand for, etc. And then you need to work on the skills that will help you get that vision and message across. And so that's the way that I would look at this. I would not spend time researching into what you think, what you're going to guess judges are looking for. I wouldn't really spend too much time looking at past title holders either, because very often, well, actually almost all the time, the judges are different from year to year. And even if they're not, you look sometimes and there's no real defining characteristic of the title holders as outside of, yeah, she speaks well, she's articulate, she's got a lot going on, she's intelligent. Well, yeah. I mean, but no system is looking for someone who's stupid or can't talk, right? So don't waste your time. If you want to spend a bit of time doing some research, that's a good thing, but you can very easily spend too much time on that. So that's my thoughts on pageant judging, my experience. Yours may differ. You can let me know that in the comments below. I'm going to get out of here because the wind's coming up and looks like there might be a storm coming through. But I'll speak to you next time.